All right, guys, so we are going to go ahead and look at our last set of problems for the week. And this is when we are taking all of the stuff that we have worked on last week and so far this week, and we're actually putting it all together. So we are going to look at simplifying rationals now using all three methods. So for example, reducing a fraction. So 4 over 6 to 2 over 3, right? We're looking at reducing things. Factoring, we're going to be using our t-charts, what multiplies to get us something and adds to get us something. And then GCF, as a reminder, let's do a GCF. Let me give you an example here. So 2x squared plus 4x. Let's say we had something like that. Remember, a greatest common factor is what these terms share. So looking at my numbers, between 2 and 4, I can see 2 goes into both of those. And looking at my x's, I have 2 here and another x here. So they both share 1. Looking at what would be left over, I can go ahead and divide to figure out what's left. So 2 divided by 2 would get me 1. I had 2 x's here and I took 1 out, so 1x plus 4 divided by 2 would get me 2, and that x went on the outside. So these are the three things we're going to be doing here, guys. Finding the greatest common factor, factoring, and reducing. So all three of these skills that we've worked on for the past week and a half now, we're putting them all together and simplifying rationals doing it. So let's go ahead here, pause your video here, take a second, write down your notes, and then we'll go ahead and get going here. All right, guys, so to give you some help on these problems, because sometimes these problems can be a little overwhelming because there's so much going on, but we just need to train our brains to kind of work through this process. The very, very first thing you need to do is check for a greatest common factor, always. Okay, if you do that every time, it will make your life a lot easier. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're just going to break this fraction down one side at a time. So I'm actually going to cover up the bottom, and I want to go ahead and look at this, and I want to decide, do I have a GCF? Yes, I do have a greatest common factor here. So I need to first find what that GCF is. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and write this off to the side. So I do have a greatest common factor for this first one. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the top. Between 4 and 8, again, you can use your multiples chart if needed. The biggest number that goes into both of those would be 4. And then let's take a look at our x's. I have 4 here, and I have 3 here. So the most that they have in common, that the biggest amount I can share in both groups is 3. So x to the third is going to go out front here. Looking at my leftover pieces, let's go ahead and figure that out by dividing. So 4 divided by 4 would get me 1. I had 4 x's, but 3 of them went outside, so I'm just left with this x right here. 8 divided by 4 gets me 2, and I had x to the third, and all 3 of those x's went out, so that is what's left over. All right, let's go ahead and look at the bottom here. So let's ignore the top. I'm going to go ahead and cover that up, and let's look at the bottom. Again, first step, do I have a greatest common factor? 1, 2, 8, nope, and they don't all share x's. Okay, well that's good. Let's go ahead and take a look though. Can we factor this? So taking a look, is there something with an x squared that I need to factor? And we do. So this, we are going to go ahead and factor. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like then. So what multiplies to get me -8? That will add to get me -2. So we kind of want to think through that process here, what numbers work. And hopefully you're thinking -4 and +2 will work for that one. So again, just like what we did above where we rewrote it, we want to do the same thing for the bottom, x squared minus 2x minus 8. I want to go ahead and rewrite this as our factors, just like what we did in the second video for this week. X minus 4, x plus 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what we've got here. So top to bottom, we simplified this. We found our GCF here and we factored here, okay? Now we want to go ahead and look, can we reduce anything or cross anything off? So I'm going to go ahead and write this so it's a little bit easier for our eyes to see here. We've got 4x to the third times x plus 2 all over x minus 4 times x plus 2. So our third step is here, can we simplify or reduce or cross anything off? Okay, now remember these parentheses are super important because they're all one group. I see I have an x plus 2 and an x plus 2 on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel those. Now let me ask you a question and think to yourself, can I cancel these 4s? It's the same thing on top and bottom. Hopefully you're telling yourself no. And you're telling yourself no because this 4 is in this group. So in order to cancel this, I would have to have an x minus 4 up top, which I don't have here. So if we look at what's left over, I've got 4x to the third over x minus 4, and that would be my answer. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 2 here. Okay, so again, I'm just going to look at it piece by piece. So up on the top, 4x squared. Well, this is just one term by itself. I don't have a GCF, and I'm not going to factor that. So can I reduce or expand? Maybe let's add that to our notes. Can I reduce or expand anything out here? And looking at this one, we can, right? 4x squared, I can expand that out to 4 times x over times x. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the denominator here. Again, first thing, do I have a greatest common factor? And I do here. I do have a greatest common factor. Looking between x to the third and x squared, they share, if we expand this out, x to the third and x squared, I can circle 2 from each group. So x squared is going to go with me on the outside. Looking at my numbers, I have a 1 and a 4. I can't divide either of those by anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave those alone. But let's look at what our leftover pieces are. X to the third, I took 2 x's out, so x is going to hold its place. Right? We had 1 x left over there. Minus 4, and then I had 2 x's and they both went on the outside, so I don't have any x's left there. All right, again, I'm going to rewrite this so it's a little bit easier for ourselves to see. We've got 4 times x all over. Now, here's another thing you could do. X squared, right? I could expand that out as well as x times x in my group of x minus 4. And then taking a look, can we cross anything off? Can we simplify? Well, yeah, I've got an x here on top and bottom, and on here on top and bottom. So I can go ahead and rewrite my answer as 4 over x minus 4. And that would be my final answer. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to look at one more together, and then I'm going to have you try one on your own. So go ahead and write this problem down if you haven't already. And let's go ahead, again, just look at it piece by piece. So looking up at the top, first check, do I have a greatest common factor? Nope, there's nothing in common between 1 and 36, and they don't share any x's. All right, next step, can I factor this? Yes, you can. Hopefully you're remembering from our second video we did this week, I could rewrite this as x squared. Notice how it's missing that middle term. Plus 0x minus 36. So I can go ahead and factor this. So I'm going to go ahead and put that work down here. What multiplies to get me negative 36, that will add to get me 0. And hopefully your brain is telling you negative 6 times 6 works for that. So when I rewrite this, okay, x squared minus 36, I can rewrite this as x minus 6 times x plus 6. All right, let's go ahead and look at the bottom. All right, same thing. Do I have a greatest common factor here? That's always your first thing you want to check. And we do have a GCF of 2. Look at your x's. X to the third and x squared. X squared is my shared group there. What's left over? Let's go ahead and divide. 2 divided by 2 gets me 1. I had 3 x's and 2 of them went on the outside, so I only have an x left. 12 divided by 2 gets me 6, and both my x squareds went on the outside, so that's left over. All right, rewrite this, make it a little bit prettier. X minus 6 times x plus 6 over, and you don't have to do this step, I'm just trying to make it a little bit more easier for you guys to see. 2x squared times x plus 6. And let's take a look. Is there anything we can cancel or cross off? X plus 6 and x plus 6 are the same, so I can go ahead and cancel those. And then my answer is what's left over, x minus 6 over 2x squared. All right, go ahead and copy number 4 down and give this one a try. Again, do you have a greatest common factor? And go from there. So pause the video here and give this a try. All right, looking at this first one here. So looking at our top, right, if we look at this piece by piece, do I have a greatest common factor? Yes, I have 4 x's here, and I have 3 x's here. So my greatest common factor is x to the third. I can take 3 x's on the outside with me. When we looked at what's left over, I had an x plus 3, and then all of my x's went on the outside. Now looking at the bottom, we had 7x. Now kind of like this problem up above, where it was just a monomial, something by itself, we couldn't really expand this out, right? We could here because we had 2 x's, but looking at our example down here, 7x, I can't expand 7 and I can't really do anything with x. X is just by itself. But I can expand x to the third. Okay, so x to the third, I'm going to go ahead and expand that out. I had 1, 2, 3 of them times x plus 3 over 7x. Now, think to yourself, can I cancel anything or reduce? This x can cancel with this x. So what I'm left with is x squared times x plus 3 over 7 for my final answer here. All right, guys, this is a lot of different pieces that we're putting together, so take your time, follow these steps that are at the top of your paper, and if you're still struggling with this and a little stuck, go back and rewatch this video. Sometimes it's really helpful to go back and just watch and not have to worry about writing things down also at the same time. It can help your brain learn things a little bit better. So if you're a little bit stuck on these problems, go back, press play again, and just watch the video and listen as I talk through this. All right, guys, again, please join my office hours if you are stuck and need any help.